A warning to our audience, this next segment contains descriptions and images of police violence. We turn now to Mississippi, where 6 white former police officers who called themselves the Goon Squad have pleaded guilty to raiding a home and torturing 2 Black men earlier this year, after first trying to cover up their actions. Some of the officers face life in prison. On January 24th, court records show the deputies raided a home in Braxton, Mississippi, after a white neighbor of one of the officers called them to complain there were Black men staying there. The officer texted the others, quote, "Are y'all available for a mission?" That night, without a warrant, the officers burst into the home, handcuffed, beat, tasered the 2 men, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. Also sexually abused them with a sex toy with shouting racial slurs. One of the officers put a gun in Jenkins' mouth for a mock.
What the fuck? That's crazy. That's some bullshit. Hey, listen. Boy, y'all gonna make us get together, motherfucker. I love white people. I love white people. I got white people in my family. But y'all gonna have to make an example out of them cops, or y'all gonna start some bullshit.
Execution, and pulled the trigger. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, exited through his neck. This is U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca last week announcing federal charges against the former officers for the attack.
But not only did they brazenly commit these acts, but after inflicting serious bodily injury by firing a shot through one of the victim's mouths, they left him lying in a pool of blood. Gathered on the porch of the house to discuss how to cover it up. What indifference.
They silly as hell. They really went in there. Dog, some cops did some silly ass shit. They went in there and didn't even have no plan. Dumb as hell.
What disregard for life.
After the attack, Michael Corey Jenkins was actually charged with a felony based on method.
I feel like they did that shit. They went in there and ain't had no plan. That's because they you know how when the motherfucker getting away with so much shit because they got like a higher power, you know what I'm saying? They got like somebody higher on their side that can clean it up. On the real, yo. They got sloppy.
Amphetamine, the officers said they found in the raid. But records show that was a lie, and the charge was dropped.
This shit ain't just start
in fact,
doing that
the
shit.
deputies planted
This shit ain't just start. They ain't just start doing that shit to them. They've been doing that shit to motherfuckers. They've been doing that shit and wherever they gotta get investigated. They've been doing that shit. They ain't just start with them. And yeah, some bullshit.
Drugs to devise an excuse for the raid, and also stole surveillance video from the house. Their body cameras were off. Court documents said the officers used the name Goon Squad, quote, because of their willingness to use excessive force and not to report it.
Goon Squad.
The Associated Press found the deputies were linked to at least 4 violent attacks on Black men since 2019. 2 of the men died. For more, we're joined by Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, as well as Malik Shabazz, a civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice, who's representing them. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Malik, let's begin with you. Can you talk about how this case was exposed, how we saw these officers charged?
They ain't safe. They gonna be in, well, they're gonna have to go to protective custody and be protective custody and protective custody. They're gonna have to get protected in protective custody.
And what you
Yeah.
understand about
Somebody
their
get an example
background,
out of them.
this not being the first vicious attack.
Okay.
They y'all,
Thank you for having us on.
they
I want to say
they
before we
fucked
get
up.
started
Somebody
that
gonna,
that Michael and Eddie will only be speaking, that they cannot speak about the specific details of what happened in that house that night, but they can talk about their reactions to the guilty verdicts and to their pain and suffering. And Michael is suffering because half of his face is numb. But we're because we have sentencing coming up, so we're under certain sensitive legal guidelines. But we're happy to be on with such a progressive audience. This case was brought to light through the determination of Black Lawyers for Justice, of myself as the attorney for Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, and Mississippi Counsel Trent Walker. From early January, we have advocated strongly and vigorously in every way. And we have worked with community.
these motherfuckers put the gun in his mouth and everything. Like he got shot in his face on the road. I think he got shot in the face. He's lucky to be alive, dog. They silly as hell. And I think over some
activists.
I think this shit is over him sex with white women
in Mississippi and throughout the country in order to bring the truth that is coming to light today. That these defendants, Hunter Elwood, Christian Dead,
these motherfuckers supposed to be out there catching criminals, and they motherfucking mad at black man that's laying a D down on white women. Crazy. People be, that should be crazy. You know what? Y'all, it's not the black man ain't the problem. It's you the problem. You the lane. That's why you doing shit like this. That's probably why they don't.
Edmund, Brett McAlpin,
Want to fuck with you. Doing crazy.
Middleton, Osdike, and Joshua Hartfield. That they're called the Rankin County Goon Squad.
Yeah.
They're known in the community as the Rankin County Death Squad. This has been occurring for a long time under the leadership of Sheriff Bryan Bailey, who is a
See, they got sloppy. They got sloppy and lazy because they felt like they gonna keep on, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna keep on getting cleaned up, swept on.
Be the subject of criminal investigation also. And they have been getting away with this so long that they felt emboldened to act in such a radical and callous way.
The sheriff ain't got no choice but to let their ass fall off.
On that night of January 24th, 2023. But it's through persistence. It's through intense legal advocacy, with us advocating to the U.S. Justice Department, collecting evidence and applying legal pressure and all kinds of pressure to bring about what is now historic. Last Thursday, these 6 defendants pled guilty to 14 federal criminal charges. They'll plead guilty to more state charges Monday. This is the first time, democracy now, this is the first time that a white Mississippi police officer has ever been held criminally responsible for harming a black person. And we know that plenty of police brutality has occurred not only in Rankin County under Bryan Bailey, but throughout the state of Mississippi. This is a history-making moment. I'm just so sorry it had to come on the backs of the pain and the suffering, the torture and the shooting and the abuse and waterboarding of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, our clients.
I can't bear to go to Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker meeting you in this way for what you went through that horrific January night. But I'm wondering if each of you could respond to the guilty plea of these officers and what it means to you that some of them may be facing life in prison. Michael Jenkins, let's begin with you.
I feel great that we're finally getting justice after months. At first they didn't even believe us. For a while I didn't think they were gonna even get a slap on the wrist or anything, but I feel great about it.
And I know it's difficult for you to talk with the gun in your mouth. The police shot you through your mouth, lacerating your tongue. It went through to your neck, shredding that area of your neck. I am only glad that you can be with us today. Did you think you were going to survive that night, Michael?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm still going through pain right now. My whole face numb, my mouth hurting right now. As we speak.
And Eddie Parker, if you can talk about your response to this plea deal.
That's a long time coming. It's something I say there's also history too, coming from a long way of going through this situation with the same police officers, and pretty much you steer clear, to stay out the way so you wouldn't end up in this situation. But ending up in this situation wasn't part of me, staying clear. So I'm astounded. I'm real happy that it's finally come to a point where they're getting a feeling of what they dish out to people, day in, day out.
And I really misspoke because it's not a deal. They have pled guilty. The idea that they call themselves, Eddie Parker, that they call themselves the Goon Squad. Your thoughts?
That's the Goon Squad. That seems to be a crime organization that I guess they were paid to go out and to stop, but they became that themselves. I believe policing and the public, go hand in hand. I mean, they're people just like us. They want to be held accountable for everything they do. They want to get this certain I guess you say the end of the stick treatment as being the golden ones, but they're not. They're people just like us. I mean, they go out and they do the opposite of what they're getting paid to do. I think it's very horrendous how they can call themselves a Goon Squad and still put on the badge and say they're protecting people.
Malik Shabazz, your lawsuit also mentions other times Rankin County Sheriff deputies used excessive force. I want to ask you about Damian Cameron, who died in 2021 after being taken into custody by the same Rankin County Sheriff's deputies who later attacked Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. This is a clip from a WAPT news report featuring Jenkins' mother, Monica Lee.
A news release from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office says deputies got a call about a burglary and vandalism. When they arrived, Damian was identified as the suspect. The release says as a deputy approached him, he began to fight and resist arrest. They were able to eventually get him into custody and into a patrol car.
And I'm thinking they're taking my son to jail. So I go outside and tell my son goodbye and I love him and I'll be up there tomorrow. At that point, when I got to the side of the truck, my son was laid on the ground, unresponsive.
Monica Lee has said she believes if the sheriff had taken action against the deputies involved in her son's death, maybe they would not have gone on to attack Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. The lawsuit also holds Sheriff Bailey responsible for failing to properly train the deputies involved in these incidents. This is Rankin County Sheriff Bryan Bailey speaking last week about the charges his former deputies pled guilty to.
Based on the facts and their guilty pleas, all of the former deputies lied to me that night of this incident in January. We have cooperated fully with all outside investigating agencies to uncover the truth and bring justice to the victims. We've also sought assistance from outside agencies and consultants to help us in repairing our trust with the community.
So that was Rankin County Sheriff Bryan Bailey speaking last week. Malik Shabazz, the civil rights attorney who's brought...
It ain't nothing you can really motherfucking do to bring justice. You know what I'm saying? They lost motherfucking family, like, they traumatized. People then died, and you know,
the lawsuit on behalf of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. If you can respond to the sheriff and to this previous case.
Yes. First of all, I want to give honors to Miss Monica Lee, who was the mother of Damian Cameron, attorney Trent Walker, and myself. We represent Miss Monica Lee for the death of Damian Cameron, which occurred at the hands of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and its officers, including Hunter Elwood, the shooter who didn't just shoot Michael Jenkins in his mouth. He placed the gun inside Michael Jenkins' mouth and held it for an extended period of time, almost up to a minute, before he intentionally shot Michael Jenkins in his mouth, attempting to kill him. Yes, Ms. Lee is correct. If they would not have participated in a cover-up around Damian Cameron's death, Damian Cameron's death is analogous and very similar to George Floyd's death. It was Hunter Elwood and Luke Stickman who put the knees on Damian Cameron's back and on his neck, causing trauma to his neck and causing hemorrhages in both of Damian Cameron's eyes, meaning that the compression on his neck is what led to asphyxiation and his actual cause of death. But the autopsy, mysteriously, was ruled undetermined. With all of the evidence that I'm saying and all of the gruesome photos of the neck injuries and the hemorrhages of the eyes bulging out of his head, the autopsy...
That's because they boss.
Finding was mysteriously undetermined. The autopsy itself is missing certain information, and therefore, myself and Black Lawyers for Justice, we have our own forensic pathologist who are coming forth shortly to show you that this was a homicide and that Rankin County and Bryan Bailey refused to provide the state medical examiner with information to reach a proper conclusion because they were all protecting the officers from criminal prosecution. Therefore, the autopsy is suspicious. The autopsy and the efforts to have a genuine autopsy, it was covered up by Rankin County. And Bryan Bailey has been a part of this. Ms. Lee is correct. If they hadn't been trying to cover up, if Bailey hadn't been trying to justify his officers, no, he didn't just not train them, he has participated in acts of excessive force with his department, according to the courts. When Hunter Elwood shot Pierre Woods in Rankin County on the ground, and he gunned him and he shot him 9 times with his rifle, and the man was no threat to him, Sheriff Bailey was on the scene, and a federal judge ruled that Bailey could not have qualified immunity because he ratified and watched it all go on in person. And so the truth is coming out about the death of Damian Cameron and how they had the knees on his neck like his mother has testified by affidavit to, and they had the knees on his neck that crushed the life out of Damian Cameron, and they did nothing about it. They've lied to us, but we're going to bring that case. That case is coming back to life. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan. They infiltrated the sheriff's department. Bryan Bailey has known about this. Many of these criminals were on duty up until June 1st, only through the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and U.S. Department of Justice leader Kristen Clark and her Southern District in Mississippi, who've done a great job. Only through their efforts has Bryan Bailey, sheriff, trying to come to some remorse. He has not even apologized to the victims. We demand that Bryan Bailey step down now. He's a part of a pattern of practice and a culture and a custom of terrorism by his department. We have blacks, whites, rich, poor. They have been beaten by his officers. He's known this all along, and the struggle continues. In this case, for compensation for these two suffering victims, Jenkins and Parker, but for all of the victims of Rankin County terrorism. It's the #1 county for terrorism and white supremacist infiltration. Case in point, for our close, Christian Dedman. It's coming out, he has family members that have pled guilty in Mississippi to hate crimes. I mean, a lot more is going to come out about this. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan, and it's in the police departments.
And Malik Shabazz, can you place Rankin County for us in two ways, in history and also just geographically? It's right near Jackson, the capital.
Yes. Attorney Trent Walker says, who grew up in Rankin County, my partner, Attorney Trent Walker, states that this was customary in Rankin County. They beat first and they don't ask questions later. They beat you, they kill you, and you are ordered not to say anything about it. Hunter Elwood, the shooter, actually pled guilty in federal court to another crime he had committed.
What type of shit is that? Hey, they call themselves the Goon Squad. Y'all better charge their ass like that's a gang. They a gang. On the real.
Which contained a similar fact to what he did in the home of Jenkins and Parker. When these deputies busted in to begin this torture session, Hunter Elwood shot his gun off as an intimidation against Jenkins and Parker. Before he shot Michael later, he shot his gun off.
They ass about to get treated in jail. Them cops about to get treated in jail. They're going to get treated.
Well, he pled guilty in federal court to doing the same thing to another person in Rankin County. He just shooting his gun off like that. So what we're saying, ma'am, is that all of these truths are going to come to light. Rankin County has done this for a long time. It's near Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, and I believe the county is sort of a reaction to Jackson. Jackson is in Hinds County. It's
real, and they need to go to jail right where they did all that shit at. They need to go
majority black, and there's hostility towards Jackson, and Rankin is like a white enclave that is next to Jackson, and it's set up like almost like a political, social antithesis or against Jackson. And so they're clear in Rankin, just 20 minutes away from Jackson, Mississippi, just like these deputies said. I
don't know, they might need to go to jail in a different area because they probably got they probably got they probably know too many people in the system.
They didn't want any black men living in the area. The mere fact that there were black men in this area, that they were going to carry out this mission and let them know that they were not welcome and they were going to violate all laws and break in. It's because they have determined, I believe these deputies and others in that county have determined that Rankin County is for whites and Hinds County is for blacks. And they're going to enforce it under the color of law, through violence and torture. Not to mention, especially on this program, we cannot forget waterboarding. Waterboarding was where the United States military was condemned for using these techniques at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, in the Iraq War. The military denounced this. But in 2023, incredibly, in Rankin County, these deputies, Elwood, McAlpin, Dedman, Updike, Middleton, Hartsfield, they actually waterboarded the two men you see now. They had them on their backs. They had them handcuffs. They had them intimidated, and they were pouring milk, liquids, and grease all over their faces in this insane interrogation and intimidation act. Then after they did all this, can you imagine law enforcement with dildos and sexual devices in their possession, attempting and putting it in the mouths? I hate to say this, that happened to the brothers, but we got to know their pain and suffering. To take a dildo and to shove it in the mouths of handcuffed and bound men.
Fucking cops did that. On the road. They not gonna be safe in jail. Somebody gonna
and waterboard them like that on the ground, and then hurl eggs at them, and then make them strip naked in the shower to try to clean this mess up, strip these men naked in front of these criminals. You know, it just never fails to ignite my passion, and therefore tactically and strategically.
They did this they went into these dudes' house and did all this to them for them dating white women. Like, that's ridiculous.
We are after Rankin County and we won't let up.
Michael shit.
I want to end with the voices of Michael, Corey Jenkins, and Eddie Terrell Parker. How you have lived through the aftermath of this, the trauma that you have experienced, and what you want to come out of this. I mean, it looks like you are exposing an entire sheriff's department in Mississippi. Let's begin with Eddie Parker.
It happened to him too.
We want justice. We want justice for everyone that has gone through this with Rankin County or gone through this because of Rankin County. We want justice for the ones that were afraid to speak up. You know, justice for the ones that can't speak up. We want you know, something new and better, and and clean to come out of this.
And Michael Jenkins.
Basically the same thing, to make sure nobody never go through what we went through again.
They shot him in the mouth.
Animals don't get treated like this. You know, I ain't never seen no animal get treated like this.
Well,
just to make sure.
I just want to thank you, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, for your bravery in coming forward and telling your stories. And also, I want to thank Malik Shabazz, the civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice.
Wow.
Well, in Mississippi, 2 out of the 6 former deputies are facing sentencing today for torturing 2 Black men last year. So far, a federal judge sentenced Hunter Elwood to 20 years in prison. Jeffrey Middleton will be sentenced this afternoon. The rest of the men will follow over the next couple of days.
Now, these men pleaded guilty in August to a slate of state and federal charges, and prosecutors say that the officers nicknamed themselves the Goon Squad because of their willingness to use excessive force.
They know they're getting off. They know they're getting off because they know they didn't kill.
Reported. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton joins us now. Antonia, I mean, frankly, these charges are disgusting, and it's something that unfortunately some people didn't realize were even happening or forgot that this even happened. And it's not quite as rare as we think. What are the charges specifically?
You know, you're right to point that out, because one of the conversations happening in Mississippi right now is that for many Black elders there, this feels like a relic of what they were hoping was a bygone era, something from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s in the South that shouldn't be happening today. But what happened that night in January of 2023 is that these 5 former deputies and 1 police officer entered this home, no warrant, no evidence that anything was happening there. And they proceeded to torture these men for hours using food, at one point a sex toy, and threatening an execution. And that's how one of the men, Michael Jenkins, ended up being shot in the mouth by one of the officers, who's the officer who has been sentenced to 20 years. So this is heinous, doesn't even really describe how awful all of this is. And on top of all of what I just described, they then tried to plant evidence, guns, drugs on these men. And it took months for these 2 victims, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, to be believed. And so, you know, there's relief that we're here now. But there's another world in which that actually wouldn't have been the case.
It's sick. Somehow Jenkins and Parker did survive. What are they saying about these sentencings?
Well, they are pushing for the maximum sentences. And it's not just the two of them. It's actually an entire Black community in the Jackson area rising up here and saying, you really need to send a message now. And, you know, we have 20 years for one officer. That officer is facing the most serious charges because of having shot Jenkins in the mouth. But they're hoping something very similar is coming for the other 5 men involved in this. And now on top of all of that, the local DA is going to have to review all kinds of cases in association with the Goon Squad. So think about this, you know, there's the story of just these 6 guys, but really there is a bigger process here that could take years, undoing all the harm that was likely done.
And how many of those victims were not believed, right? Incredible.
All right, Antonia Hilton, thank you so much for your reporting. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
And watch this. They're going to go to jail and be...
I got the moves when you see me on a Saturday night. I got the moves, that's playing and the music's alright. I got the moves, hey, I think I do. I got the moves, hey, I think I do too.
That's right. One of the men told the judge the deputies who tortured him, killed him, but he didn't die. The victims say they were beaten, tased, sexually assaulted, and subjected to racial slurs after the law enforcement officers accused them of dating white women.
And these are the longest and strongest sentences in United States history for any police officers.
Judgment day for the Goon Squad. 5 disgraced former Rankin County deputies and an ex-Richland police officer sentenced to additional prison time after a judge rejected state prosecutors' recommendation to give the men less time behind bars for abusing 2 Black men.
Been a long year, man, but it's been a short year. I'm thankful for all y'all, you know, who's been here with us, man, for the ride. All y'all that helped us, you know, with this fight.
Victims Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins speaking out after the judge handed down the sentences.
It really ain't been about me. You know, it's been about what they did to my mom, how they made her feel, and just to dictate and the bullying.
Sentences for Joshua Hartfield, Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, Daniel Updike, and Christian Detman range from 15 years to 25 years. Hunter Elwood, who shot Jenkins in the mouth, was given a 45-year prison sentence. Jenkins and Parker's attorney called the judge's ruling historic.
No police officer in the history of Rankin County has ever been held criminally responsible for harming anyone, let alone a Black person.
The 6 men are already serving between 17.5 years to 40 years in prison on federal charges. They will serve the state charges concurrent with the federal sentence. Prosecutors say in January 2023, the deputies handcuffed Jenkins and Parker in their Braxton home, then tased, beat, sexually assaulted, and subjected the men to racial slurs after the law officers accused them of dating white women. While the deputies are headed to prison, the fight for justice in Rankin County isn't over.
Bryan Bailey should be on notice that he may be next.
The Rankin County NAACP still demanding Sheriff Bryan Bailey resign and for the U.S. Justice Department to prosecute Bailey.
They ass need to do all that time. Fuck that. Why they running the concurrent? That means that time gonna ride along the side of that time. On the real, they need to do that time, get out and do that time.
The sheriff,
all that shit,
who we consider
like
the leader of the Goon Squad. So we are going to continue our fight to remove him from office.
Now, the sheriff has said he was in the dark and wasn't aware of what the Goon Squad was up to. Rankin County facing a $400 million civil lawsuit. The victim's lawyers say a court judgment against the county could bankrupt Rankin County. Back to you.
In the last hour, 6 former Mississippi officers were sentenced to 15 to 45 years in prison on state charges in the assault and torture of 2 Black men. The officers pleaded guilty to charges including hindering prosecution, burglary, home invasion, and aggravated assault. Now, this all comes after the group, which called themselves the Goon Squad, also pleaded guilty to separate federal charges last year, and they were sentenced to terms of 10 to 40 years in prison. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar is live outside the courthouse in Brandon, Mississippi for us this afternoon. Priya, walk us through the details of the state sentences these men are facing and how this connects to what they've already been convicted of federally.
Yeah, that's right. These 6 law enforcement officers actually pleaded guilty to all of both the federal and the state charges. Most of them were felonies. As you mentioned, home invasion, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, aggravated assault. This all stems from an incident that happened back in January of last year where a white neighbor in Rankin County called a sheriff's deputy and said that she was concerned about 2 black men who were entering a white woman's home. At that point, this deputy mobilized what they called the Goon Squad because they prided themselves on using excessive force, went to that home, entered without a search warrant, and then proceeded to brutally torture these men for a period of 90 minutes, physically, sexually, and psychologically abusing them. And once things had gotten too far, one of those 2 black men ended up shot in the mouth. The law enforcement officers realized they had to cover it all up. So they planted methamphetamine and a gun, according to court records, and actually charged the men with drug possession. But of course, since then, things have been reversed, and now these men are facing their own jail sentences.
And the 2 victims in this case, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, they filed a $40 million civil lawsuit against the Rankin County Sheriff's Office.
That's why they charges should get ran consecutive, and they should have to do that time because you had already. If I get caught with drugs and a gun, it's a federal charge out the gate. Anybody you get caught with drugs with a gun, it's federal. So y'all brought that and planted that on them. So y'all should get that. That shit shouldn't be ran concurrent. It shouldn't be ran alongside the side. That's the
office last year. What are you hearing from them? Have they spoken today? Have their families spoken out?
Yeah, we heard from the victims and their families, and they called the sentences today monumental, especially since what the state was recommending, which was actually half of what the judge ended up imposing today. They did deliver victim impact statements inside of the courtroom through their attorney, Malik Shabazz. Let's take a listen to the words of Eddie Parker, one of those 2 victims.
My life was not perfect, but it was mine. I doubt if I'll ever experience it again. I wish I didn't have to experience the memory of this torture session, but I can't do that either. I can't erase my memories, but I will struggle to live on.
And so Vicki and Ellison, now everyone from the courtroom actually moved over to the Rankin County Sheriff's Department because they're calling on the Sheriff Bryan Bailey to resign. They say there are systemic problems in the Sheriff's Department and that he knew about it, and it's time for him to go.
All right, and that civil lawsuit is a $400 million lawsuit. We'll keep following this. Priya, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
That's a timeout. They got a timeout.
Hi, my name's Mike. I live in the UK, and I've been working on the data annotation site for the last sort of 2.5 years or so now. I can honestly say that data annotation is the one place that's really.
That little ass time.
Yes, sir. You said under oath that you did understand that, correct? Yes, sir. You understand that I am not accepting the state's recommendation today of rejecting that recommendation. It's my understanding that the attorneys have met after I informed them that I have rejected that recommendation. Amended the recommendation. You understand that? Yes, sir. Okay. Is there anything from the state or the defense as far as one sentencing? Not from the state. Anything from the defense?
Your Honor, just I would state in speaking with Mr. McAlpin, he would respectfully ask the court to honor the original plea. He understands that the court is not accepting it, but I wanted to make that statement on his behalf. But he understands that the court has final say, as he did in this plea for the court previously.
Is that correct, Mr. McAlpin? Yes, sir. All right. Anything else?
No, sir. No. All
right. As to count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, we've ordered this court to serve 15 years in custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections. Specific conditions will include a victim's fund fee of $1,000, fine of $5,000.
So it's like for rape and all that shit. They rape these.
Count 2, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. We've ordered this court to serve 5 years in custody.
All that shit, torture.
Specific conditions will include
15 fucking years. Come on.
$431.50 for a total of $6,431.50. all be paid within 2 years after release from custody.
They cops.
You also will be required to permanently surrender your law enforcement
They
certificate and
just give them some
execute
time.
attached
They
affidavit.
still want to start no guys right and no crazy and shit.
Law enforcement officer standards and training.
That time is little. They
Counts 1 and 2
just
run
get their ass
concurrent. Both counts run concurrent to
protective custody. Protective.
Anything else?
No, sir, Your Honor. All right. Maybe excuse Your Honor.
Never know who they didn't, who in jail, family member they didn't motherfucking kill.
All right, 33-5-24 State versus Jeffrey Middleton.
On the real, and they know they probably don't even make it out. Probably why they came on that little time. They know they one man cell. Don't go around nobody. Even if the cell don't come out.
Mr. Middleton, can I try to you solemnly swear affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
And you're Jeffrey Middleton, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Middleton, you know you answer one answer guilty of perjury. You understand that? Yes, Your Honor. August the 14th of 2023, you pled guilty to count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, and guilty in count 2, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. You called. That guilty plea was accepted and entered by the court. Pre-sentence investigation was ordered and reviewed, and we're here today for sentencing.
On the real, this ain't. They've been doing this shit. This ain't their first rodeo. They've been doing this shit for a long. They've been doing it for a while. They finally got caught. They've been doing this for a while. They on the wrist. They know they've been probably killed 20 people. On the real.
Mr. Middleton,
spank on the wrist. They got sloppy and lazy.
at the time of your plea,
they sheriff cleaning that shit up.
Here, I told you at the guilty plea that I was not bound by any recommendation.
You wrong. You wrong. Only.
I was not bound by any recommendation. Is that correct? All right, you understand that I said that, and you said under oath that you understand it. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. All right, you also understand that today I'm rejecting that recommendation made by the state. It's my understanding that the attorneys have gotten together after I informed them that I rejected that and agreed to amended recommendation. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. Okay.
Your Honor, the state did make an amended recommendation, but as with Mr. McAlpin, my client rejects that, and he does understand the court's recommendation that he rejected.
All right, thank you.
Just because they date white women. And they could have.
Anything from the state? Anything from the state or defense department since? Nothing from the state.
No, Your Honor.
All right. To count one hindering prosecution in the first degree of the order, this court served 15 years in custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections. Specific conditions will include payment of a crime victims fund of $1,000, a fine of $5,000, and court costs and assessments. $431.50 for a total of $6,431.50. All be paid within 2 years of release from custody. You'll also be required to permanently surrender your law enforcement certificate and execute the attached affidavit for surrender of your submissions to the Board of Law Enforcement and Officers Training Standards and Training. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. All right, counts 1 and 2 run concurrent. Both of them run concurrent to federal time. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. All right. Do you have any questions? No, Your Honor. Anything else? Federal? I think the court needs to pronounce this. I apologize. As to hindering prosecution in the first degree, the order supports to insert 15 years in the custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections. And count 2, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for that. I apologize to the dog. All right. Okay, 33-5-25, State versus Christian Dedman.
15 years. This is a perfect. On the real, I wonder if did he go to jail? If did he go to jail, I wonder what type of time they're gonna give him. compared to the time that they giving them for the shit that they did.
Mr. Denman, can you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
All right, you're Christian Dedman, is that correct? Yes. All right, Mr. Dedman, you understand you're under oath, answers to be sworn, answer under penalty of perjury, do you understand that? Yes. All right, on August the 14th, 2023, you pled guilty to count 1, burglary, and count 2, conspiracy to commit, hindering the prosecution in the first degree. Do you recall that? Yes, sir. Okay. That guilty plea was accepted and entered by the court. Pre-sentence investigation was ordered, and we're here today for sentencing. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. Counsel, you received a copy of the PSI, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
State received a copy.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Anything from the state or the defense as far as the objections or additions?
None from the state, Your Honor. None from the defense.
All right. All right, Mr. Dedman, at the time that you entered your plea before me, I told you that I was not bound by any plea bargaining agreement, but could impose the maximum sentence. Do you recall that? Yes, sir. You also said under oath you understood that. Do you recall that? Yes, sir. Okay. You understand that today I'm rejecting that recommendation. It's my understanding that the attorneys have met, and after I told them I was rejecting that recommendation, come up with a new recommendation.
You gonna eat your cornbread? Somebody go. They better hope nobody don't ask them that.
From the, is anything from the state or the defense before I go on sentence?
Your Honor, the court, Mr. Dedman understands the court has the right to reject
Better hope nobody don't want their
initial plea
corn.
offer.
Better hope nobody don't want their cornbread. I've been there.
Okay, Mr. Dedman, according to, let's say it's count number 1, burglary.
Go get a broom.
Order this court to serve 20 years in custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections. Specific conditions will include payment of crime victims fund of $1,000, fine of $5,000. Count 2, conspiracy to commit, hindering the prosecution in the first degree. We order this court, that you serve 5 years in the custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections. Specific conditions will include the payment of court costs and assessments.
$431.50.
$431.50
I
for
thought it was
$6,431.50. All be paid within 2 years after release from custody. Also be required to permanently surrender your law enforcement certificate and execute an attached affidavit for the surrender for the transmission to the Board of Law Enforcement Officers Standard Training. You understand that? Yes, sir. All right, counts 1 and 2 run concurrent, both run concurrent. You understand that?
I hope they survive.
Questions? All right, Counsel, anything?
No, Your Honor.
Stay.
No, Your Honor.
Probably why they all got these phones. Got 15 years and shit. 15 years. One dude got 45. He can probably go from that, but 45 years because he put the gun in dude's mouth and he shot dude that's still alive. The black dude, he put the gun in his mouth and he shot him, but he died.
26 State versus Hunter Elward.
For real. And he got 45. Everybody else got like 15 and shit. And I feel like 15 years for robbery, they basically robbery because they broke into the house. Robbery, raped them with fucking key crimes and stuff like that. They did that, I don't know how you call it, that tactic where they laid them on their back and pour oil in their mouth and water and shit. That Army, Navy, SEAL shit. Probably the same shit that they had to do in training to be, you know. He wanted to do 45. He wanted to put the gun in the mouth.
You're Hunter Elward, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Elward, you understand that you're under oath, you answer to be sworn, answer under penalty of perjury. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I wonder did they beat him for dead or what happened? Like, I wonder how did they?
On August
They thought they
14th,
killed him though.
2023, you pled guilty to count 1 of aggravated
Oh
assault.
no, I think they
Count
told
2
him
of
don't say
burglary,
nothing because
count
one
3
dude,
conspiracy to commit,
yeah.
prosecution in the first degree. You recall that?
I think they tried to tell
All right,
him.
that guilty plea was accepted and entered by the court. A pre-sentence investigation was ordered. We received that here today for sentencing.
They really thought they was gonna do that.
Both counsel received a copy of that pre-sentence investigation. Is that correct?
We need your honor. You gotta go to the doctor. What are you gonna say?
No, Your Honor.
All All right, Mr. Elwood, at the time of your plea, I told you in that plea that I was not bound by any plea bargaining agreement to impose the maximum sentence. Do you recall that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You also recall that you did agree to that under oath?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You understand that today I'm rejecting that initial plea offer, but it's my understanding that there has been a additional amended plea offer that I believe you've seen. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right.
They hit his ass with that 45. They had to be one. They had to be one of their ass.
Nothing from the state,
Not from the defendant, Your Honor.
All right,
That's
Mr. Elwood,
still like,
ag assault,
that's
count
nice.
one of the order of this court to serve
That's
20 years
nice,
in custody of
You gotta think
Mississippi
about it.
corrections. Specific conditions include a crime victims fund payment of $1,000,
Burglaries, late,
$5,000 in court
torture.
costs.
Come on, man. That's
Count two,
a lot
burglary,
of
the order of
time,
this court
man.
to serve 20 years in
On
custody
top
of
of all this
Mississippi Department of
other shit,
Corrections.
you know what I'm saying?
And count three, conspiracy to commit, hindering the prosecution of the first degree of the order of this court to serve 5 years in custody of
Y'all
Mississippi
know
Department
how
of
they do.
Corrections. Specific conditions will include payment of court costs and expenses.
431.50.
431.50 for a total of 6,431.50, all
Yeah.
paid within 2 years after release from custody.
My first shit, my old last
Permanently surrender your law enforcement certificate,
That's one
execute
great
the
card.
affidavit of surrender and transition to the Board of Law Enforcement and
It's
Officer
one
Standards
motherfucking
and Training. Do you
shit.
understand that?
Robbery,
Counts
rob
one,
a
two,
man,
three,
they
right,
and
current
drugs and a gun. That's
time
it.
also. Do you understand that?
And they running they kid in
Questions?
state time concurrent along the side. That's
Thank you, Your Honor.
one nation consecutive. When they get off the rest of their time, they wrong.
All right, 33-5-27, State versus Daniel Opdyke.
And the real, they know they ass ain't safe, boy. They go keep their ass protective custody, protected them, protected custody. One man cell, eat your food in your cell, don't shower in your cell. They damn near gonna have to live in all of it. That's the last one.
Mr. Albright, can you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're Daniel Opdyke, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Opdyke, you understand you're an oath against these.
They say the biggest for last.
You understand that?
Yes, sir.
The biggest for
All right,
last.
August 14th of 2023, you pled guilty to count one of hindering prosecution in the first degree, count two, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. Do you recall that?
Yes, Your Honor.
That guilty plea was accepted and entered by the court. The pre-sentence investigation report was ordered, received here today for sentencing. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, at the time of that plea that you made here, I told you at that guilty plea that I was not bound by any plea bargain agreement to impose the maximum sentence. Do you recall that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You said under oath that you did understand that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, you also understand that today I'm rejecting that plea. All
Yeah,
four.
six of
I
them.
understand the attorneys have met and have
One
an
more.
additional plea offer. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Anything from the state or the defense before I go into sentencing?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor. Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Opdyke is count number one, hindering prosecution in the first degree. It'll be the order of this court serve 15 years in custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. Specific conditions will include payment of a crime victims fund of $1,000, fine of $5,000, and court costs and assessments.
431.50.
And is to count two, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. It is ordered this court serve 5 years in custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. Specific conditions will include the payment of court costs and expenses, which includes that 431.50. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
For a total of $6,431.50. All be paid within 2 years after release from custody. You'll also be required to permanently surrender your law enforcement certificate and execute the affidavit of surrender for the transmission to the Board of Law Enforcement and Officer Standards and Training. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Anything else from the state or the defense?
Your Honor, you didn't mention it, but the two sentences, the 15 years and the 5, run
Thank you.
concurrently.
Thank you, sir. Counts 1 and 2 run concurrent, and also run concurrent to the federal time. Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. That's the sole reason that I asked. Is there anything else? So I appreciate y'all doing that. All right, 33-528, State versus Joshua Hartfield.
Mr. Hartfield, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. And you're Joshua Hartfield, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Hartfield, you understand the
You do
judge
have one.
sworn in from penalty of perjury. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Hartfield, on August 14th of 2023, you pleaded guilty to count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, and guilty in count 2 of conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your guilty plea was accepted and entered by the court. A pre-sentence investigation was ordered. Received that, reviewed it. We're here today for sentencing. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, Your
All
Honor.
right, both counsel received a copy of the PSI.
State received it, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any additions or corrections on that?
No, sir.
State.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hartfield, at that time that you entered the guilty plea before me, I told you that I was not bound by any plea bargaining agreement to impose the maximum sentence. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
You also said under oath that you did understand that. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir, Your
All
Honor.
right. You understand that today I'm rejecting that plea recommendation made by the state, but it's my understanding that the attorneys have met after some discussion, and I informed them that I would not accept that plea. They come up with a new plea that I think you've seen. Is that, or excuse me, a new recommendation that you've seen. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, anything from the state or the defense before we go into sentencing?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defendant, Your Honor.
All right, to count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, and the order this court serve 10 years in custody of the City Parks Corrections. Specific conditions will include payment of crime victims fund, $1,000, and a fine of $5,000. As to count 2, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree, the order this court that you serve 5 years in custody of the City Parks Corrections. Specific conditions will include payment of court costs and expenses, $431.50 for a total of $6,431.50. All be paid within 2 years after release from custody. You'll also be required to permanently surrender your law enforcement certificate and execute an affidavit or the surrender for the transmission to the Board of Law Enforcement and Officer Standards and Training. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Counts 1 and 2 are run concurrent. Both are run concurrent to any federal time. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Any questions?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Anything from the state or?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor. Nothing excused, Your Honor.
All right, anything else we need to take up with the state or the, none of the defense? No, sir. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, may be excused.
So They got big they should Rankin parents, so they time running along beside each other. They ain't gotta do that shit. They do it right after each other. The Goon Squad. They ass that's how I do.
Oh, you get out. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, definitely.
That's one of y'all plugs right there. The yellow one.
The yellow one does. Yeah. Thank you. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Had to take the dogs in order. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
They got a light spanker, man. Light ass. Stand on the phone. You have to stand on the phone. Boy, somebody else had to put your ass. Somebody else would have put your ass. Boy, you ain't coming out of jail. Your ass is out of jail. At least they get out. At least they gonna. Well, the one dude, shit, he doing 45, but they gonna. I bet you don't. I bet you. You gonna get some of that shit back. Watch. The one dude doing 45.